Why did we forget the most powerful fertilizer plant on Earth? One comfrey crown, one 5-gallon bucket, 5 minutes, and you have unlimited fertilizer for decades. No more bags. Here's what they buried. This isn't a hack. This isn't a trick. One plant in one bucket gives you superfood fertilizer for decades. No NPK guessing. No expensive bags. One plant, one bucket, forever. And it once fed half of Europe. Then it vanished from American garden centers in less than 50 years. The records survived. We have them. What they show is a story most gardeners have never heard. The archive opens in Coggeshall, Essex, in the year 1870. A man bends over a workbench in a small starch factory. He's a devout Quaker. His name is Henry Doubleday. He once dreamed of inventing the glue for the penny black postage stamp. Reading the Royal Society's journal, he finds a strange Latin word, mucilaginous, sticky, viscous, possibly the gum he spent half a lifetime hunting. So he writes a letter, not to a colleague, not to a botanist, to the head gardener at the Imperial Palace, St. Petersburg. Decades earlier, Catherine the Great had decreed something strange. Her royal gardens would be tended only by Englishmen and Scotsmen. The man who held that post for 18 years was John Bush, a London nurseryman. He'd planted long borders of two comfrey species side by side, Symphytum officinale, Symphytum aspirum. By 1870, Bush is dead. His successor reads Doubleday's letter. He digs up chance seedlings growing as weeds between the rows. Not the parent plants. They're accidental F1 children. He posts them to England. The glue project collapses. The plants do not. They yield over 100 tons of fresh leaf per acre, from a perennial, without plowing, without replanting. Doubleday spends 30 years studying the plant. He keeps meticulous records. He dies poor in 1902. His relatives burn most of his research. By the 1940s, his name is a footnote. Then in 1948, a horticulturist named Lawrence D. Hills walks into a library. He pulls down a forgotten volume. He reads of an 80-ton per acre yield. The source? William Freeman's Complete Grazier of 1900. He reads of 18.5% crude protein. The source? Primrose McConnell's Agricultural Notebook of 1916. Against just 13% for the best meadow hay. In 1954, Hills founds the Henry Doubleday Research Association, named for the dead Quaker. He sets up trial grounds in a village called Bocking in Essex. He plants more than a dozen strains. He measures yields, protein, potash, calcium, iron. After a decade, one strain stands above all others. He labels it Bocking 14. It's sterile. It cannot spread by seed. It can only pass from gardener to gardener, by root cutting, by hand, the old way. But something else was waiting in those records. Forget the marketing. Here are the numbers from a single Bocking 14 leaf, cut in autumn, analyzed and published from the HDRA trials. Potash, 7.09%. Calcium, 2.77%. Phosphoric acid, 0.75%. Iron, 0.144%. A separate dry weight analysis returned a total NPK of 3.5, 1.2, and 8.4. That last number is what makes tomato growers obsess, because potassium is what makes a tomato fruit. Potassium is what fills out a pepper. Potassium is what bulks a potato. Banana peels are the household gold standard for potassium. Comfrey leaves contain more. Manure is praised as the gardener's treasure. Comfrey, leaf for leaf, has a carbon-to-nitrogen ratio so balanced it doesn't lock up nitrogen. Fresh manure does. Comfrey doesn't. A trial run by P.J.C. Harris and the HDRA team at Ryton Gardens, Coventry, ran the test. They pitted comfrey liquid fertilizer against commercial liquid feeds. The crops? Tomatoes and radishes. The comfrey plot didn't just compete. On potash-loving crops, it won. The roots of a mature comfrey plant pushed down to roughly 6 feet, past topsoil, past subsoil, into a layer most vegetables will never touch. Down there sits potassium that has leached out for centuries. Calcium, magnesium, iron. Comfrey hauls it all up, stores it in the leaves, drops the leaves, releases the nutrients, repeats. 6 to 8 cuts a year, up to 100 tons of fresh biomass per acre, from a single planting, for decades. There's one more compound worth naming, allantoin, the same molecule old herbalists called the reason comfrey was nicknamed knitbone. Modern lab work shows allantoin accelerates cell proliferation. In the soil, that means a measurable boost in microbial activity around the plants comfrey is feeding. The leaf isn't just a slow-release nutrient pellet, it's a microbiome accelerant. The Latin name says it plainly, symphytum, to grow together. The Greek historian Herodotus mentions it in 425 BC. Pliny the Elder catalogues it in 79 AD. The Anglo-Saxon leech books prescribe it for wounds. Hildegard of Bingen names it in 1179. The English illustrator behind plate 6466 of Curtis's Botanical Magazine draws it in 1879. From plants Thomas Christie presented to Kew 4 years earlier. The Latin symphytum comes from confervere, to grow together. For 2,000 years, every farming culture in Europe knew exactly what was inside this leaf. But here is what they did not tell you next. Why is there no comfrey aisle at the hardware store? Why have you never seen a 40-pound bag of Bocking 14 pellets? Why does every soil amendment commercial sell you a bottled liquid, when the plant that outperforms it grows itself? The answer isn't horticultural. The answer is financial. According to Straits research, the global fertilizer market was valued at $216.27 billion in 2024. By 2030, it's projected to surpass $280 billion. That's the entire industrial pipeline, natural gas conversion plants, ammonia tankers, the Haber-Bosch process, branded retail bags, distributor margins. Comfrey threatens all of it. Comfrey is a threat for one reason. It cannot be plugged in. You cannot patent a perennial that propagates from a 2-inch piece of root. You cannot bottle perpetual abundance. You cannot create a recurring customer for something a person can grow themselves. In 5 minutes, in a 5-gallon bucket, forever. You cannot sell synthetic potash to a gardener whose plant produces 7% potash from rain and air. You cannot sell soil drench to a yard with a 6-foot taproot mining minerals. You cannot sell an annual subscription to a perennial. You cannot create dependency when the customer already has a fertilizer factory in the garden. In the 1970s, the HDRA distributed Bocking 14 root cuttings across Britain, a few pence each. Marketing budget, zero. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. Agricultural Extension Services published almost nothing about comfrey for fertilizer. Children in 4-H clubs learned to read the bag. They didn't learn the name Symphytum times Uplandicum. The plant wasn't banned. It was simply allowed to drift out of public memory. On July 6, 2001, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued an industry advisory. Dietary supplement manufacturers were told to remove comfrey products marketed for internal use. The reason? Pyrrolizidine alkaloids, symphytine, echimidine, laziocarpine, lycopsamine, real compounds, real liver toxicity in heavy oral doses. Comfrey isn't a salad green, but notice what the 2001 advisory did not cover. It governs swallowing the plant. It said nothing about growing it as a fertilizer. Yet within a single decade, comfrey vanished from American garden catalogs. Stores stopped carrying root cuttings. Public libraries reshelved the books. A medical caution about ingestion became, by accident or design, a horticultural extinction event. Walk into any extension office today and ask about comfrey. You'll hear one word: invasive. Invasive. The word we use for things that succeed without permission. The wild Symphytum officinale does set seed and does spread. The Bocking 14 cultivar hills perfected in Essex is sterile. It will not spread by seed. It only grows where you plant a piece of root. The agencies know this. The eradication guides still get published. There is no Roundup-ready comfrey. There's no proprietary Bocking strain locked behind a seed contract. There is no royalty stream. The plant cannot be patented because it's a 19th century hybrid in the public domain. It cannot be owned because every root fragment becomes a new plant. It cannot generate perpetual revenue because once you have one, you have it forever. That's not a flaw in the plant. From the industry's view, that's the flaw. Here is what is critical. Read the agricultural literature carefully. The contradictions are right there on the page. Studies admit synthetic NPK applications often fail to deliver trace minerals. Studies admit nitrogen runoff from chemical fertilizer is a leading cause of agricultural water pollution. Studies admit organic liquid feeds match synthetic performance on most fruiting crops. The data isn't hidden, it just isn't advertised. While the catalogues forgot and underground remembered, British allotment holders, American permaculturists in the wake of Bill Mollison, off-grid homesteaders in the Ozarks, backyard farmers in Tanzania, Ireland, New Zealand. Garden Organic, the modern name of the HDRA, still distributes Bocking 14 root cuttings. A Garden Organic user survey found 64% had been growing comfrey for over 10 years, 37% for over 30. They never stopped. They were never told to. Here finally is the part you came for. One Bocking 14 root cutting, about 2 inches of crown, a few dollars from a permaculture nursery, one spot of partial sun, one 5-gallon bucket. Bury the crown about 2 inches deep, water it in, walk away. The first year, the plant builds its taproot. Leave it alone, harvest sparingly. From year 2 onward, cut the leaves about 2 inches above the soil, 4 to 6 times a season, every time the plant reaches roughly 2 feet tall. Stuff your 5-gallon bucket roughly 3/4 full of cut leaves. Weight them down with a brick. Fill with water. Cover loosely. Wait 3 to 6 weeks. The leaves will collapse into a black, mineral-rich liquid. Strain it. Dilute 1 part tea to 10 or 15 parts water. Apply at the soil line of tomatoes, peppers, fruit trees, squash, any flowering and fruiting crop. The smell, gardeners warn each other, is unforgettable. The result, on tomatoes especially, is the reason they keep doing it anyway. A single Bocking 14, properly tended, will outlive the gardener who plants it. The roots regenerate from any fragment. The leaves return after every cutting. The bucket gets restuffed, rebrewed, restrained, season after season. No replacement cost, no subscription, no NPK ratio to memorize. The plant works it out. It always has. But notice what is not happening. No government program funds distribution. No agricultural extension teaches 4th graders to plant a crown by the back fence. The eradication bulletins still come. This isn't about comfrey. This is about who decides which knowledge survives. For 2,000 years, every farming village in Europe knew what was in this leaf. For 100 years, a Quaker, a horticulturist, and a small British research association protected the records. And in less than 50 years, a $216 billion industry made a 2,000-year-old fertilizer feel like a fringe secret. That didn't happen because the plant failed. Not because it failed. Because it succeeded without chains. Right now, somewhere in Essex, a Bocking 14 plant is regrowing leaves it has dropped 1,000 times before. It doesn't know it was forgotten. It doesn't know it was renamed invasive. It just grows. It produces abundance, without permission, without patents, without your money. They tried to bury it. The plant survived. Now you know. Every person who learns this becomes a little harder to control. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Nature Unearthed and hit the bell. Every like and share keeps these stories alive.